To kick off this season of Spirit of Rowlett, we have Michelle Clark and Brandon Clark to tell us about their garden.
Well, welcome to the Clark Family Gardens. We've been gardening for about 4 or 5 years now. It started with a small 4x8 box that my husband had built. And as you see, it has turned into a lot of stuff. We have some tomatoes and stuff that are just about ready to be picked. I try to get them when they're slightly underripe. And if you pull, this will finish ripening in the house. I've got all my plants trying to trellis this year. This is the first time using cattle panels. So we have tomatoes going up, sunflowers.
So I understand, Michelle, that you and Brandon do a lot of teaching as well as gardening. You also participate in your gardening club at school, and also you teach others how to garden as well. How has that been, how have you got inspired to do that?
So when I was younger, we were pretty poor, and a lot of the foods you get through the food banks back then were not fresh foods, but I was blessed with my grandmother's garden. We had fresh food through that, and it was very important to me with my son that he got to experience that.
Late in my classroom this year, we did our own mini garden, so where we planted vegetables. It was just a fun experience, and I just love how the butterflies all come in. They're just peaceful creatures, and also love how I get to see the caterpillars.
We have a caterpillar down here we can show you. It'll be one of the black swallowtails. They love dill. So he probably has maybe a couple more days of eating, and then he'll find a place to make his chrysalis. I plant for the butterflies. I plant dill, rue, parsley, and then I also plant pollen plants or nectar plants for them. So we have some sunflowers, which I'll show you.
Well, that's great because the city of Rowlett is a bee city as well, and we're creating natural habitats within the city of Rowlett, and you are a leader in that.
So you can see these sunflowers here, and some of them are about 8 to 10 feet tall. They actually reseeded themselves from last year. So I didn't even put the seeds in. The squirrels and the birds and the plant itself just kind of, and there's probably 3 or 4 different varieties of sunflowers here. And the one benefit that the sunflowers gave me this year, especially with how hot it's been, is they have provided shade for my plants. So my plants may be able to make it through the Texas summer. So we have zinnias here, some more sunflowers. If you look up top, I'm trellising squash. This is a type of squash that is supposed to be resistant to some of the pests in Texas. My garden is organic, and I don't use pesticides in it. I use things like companion planting, rotating crops, cover crop, things like that to avoid any pesticides on my plants.
So Michelle, I understand there's some sustainable practices that you implement in your gardening. Can you tell us about them?
Sure. So this year we incorporated composting, and one right here is my large tumbler composter. And so we're creating compost so I can fertilize my gardens with that, and it's a renewable resource. I have 2 other mini composters in 2 of the beds where I have earthworms in there. They're doing their job. Where he doesn't like the worm poop, but worm poop is good for the garden. I want to get a rain barrel put in, kind of capture to reduce some of the water. Also, my fruit trees are planted on a slope, so it's catching the runoff and helping water some of the trees. Another thing I do, especially in my front beds and in here, is I have drought tolerant plants, a lot of them in the front because that's where it gets the most sun, and the butterflies and bees love it. We've invited neighbors into our garden who are considering gardening in the neighborhood. They're looking for ideas of how to plant, and they also, they usually come away with seeds or harvest, depending what's in season. I've got some cucumbers coming up in here right now. There's spicy peppers in here, but anyone who wants to learn is welcome. It's just encouraging everyone to garden and share what you have. And I think by doing that, we can all encourage each other, whether you want to grow a pollinator garden, an herb garden, a vegetable garden, all those things will help make your yard beautiful and encourage the pollinators to come in.
Brandon and Michelle, thank you so much for kicking off this Spirit of Rowlett. We were glad to have you, and we learned so much during this visit. Can you tell us where we can find you all for more information about gardening?
Well, I'm on Facebook, and you might find me right now because there's a picture of one of my zinnias as my profile picture. But you're free to message me, Michelle Hassan Clark. You might see me at one of the Take a Plant, Meet a Plant meetups once a month. You can find that group on Facebook as well, or you never know, I might be roaming Rowlett looking for seeds that no one wants to collect.
Brandon, any word of wisdom for planting?
Have fun.
Thank you, Brandon.